So I just got back from a trip in Maine. We went to Acadia National Park. It was totally awesome. We got to do a little bit of hiking, got to eat some great food, hung out in a really great Airbnb, and it was just a nice relaxing trip that we took with about 10 other people. And it got me reflecting a little bit on Cleveland and some of the downsides that we have living here, just because I got to experience what it's like living in a different place for a little while. And today I want to go over a few red flags that you might catch when you move to the Cleveland area, so that way if you are moving here from a different part of the country and you've never experienced it before, you have a pretty accurate representation of what it's like to live here before you even come here. Now, my name's Sam Oler and I'm a realtor in the Cleveland area, so if you are thinking about coming over this way, feel free to reach out to me. I help a lot of people move here every year. You can find all my contact information down in the description. But if you are starting to think about moving over this way, I always suggest come stay here for a week, see if you even like it. If you're coming here for work and you don't really have a choice, I have some good programs that are gonna make your life a lot easier for moving here. Now, before we get into the red flags, I do wanna preface this video with the fact that I do really love the Cleveland area. I moved away to a different part of Ohio for about 7 years while I was going to college and then a little bit afterwards. But the whole time I was there, I found myself longing to move back to the greater Cleveland area just because of how much I really liked it. And I had such a great upbringing here, and I think it's a great place for anyone to live. But there are a few downsides to living in this area, and that's what we're going to be talking about. The first one on the list is going to be the crime that you are going to find in Cleveland itself. Now, like I've said, I've lived here the majority of my life. I haven't encountered too many situations involving crime where I grew up, which was Parma, which is about 20 minutes south of Cleveland. I lived in Strongsville for a little while. I currently live in North Olmsted. And in the 20 plus years that I've spent here, I can't really think of a time where I felt in danger or in an unsafe situation. And I think I know the reason for the different types of crime articles that you may have read. If you look at different crime maps or a website called Area Vibes, it's going to show you where all the different crime reports happen throughout the county. And if you really start to zoom out on the map, you're going to notice that it is specified to a few different locations. Now, I think the reason that Cleveland gets the bad rap for crime is similar with every other city. No matter where you go in America, whether the city's big or small, you're probably going to experience certain inner city areas where the majority of the crime is going to be happening. And that definitely rings true to Cleveland. The majority of the time, the closer you get to the city, the more crime is going to happen. There's going to be some great parts downtown, and then as you work your way towards the edge of the city, it's going to get a little bit worse. And statistically, in Cuyahoga County, the majority of the issues are happening on the east side of Cleveland. So the problem is not really Cleveland and the suburbs itself, it's one section of Cleveland. So as long as you start to work your way into the suburbs or into the nicer urban areas, you're not going to really have a problem. Bordering East Cleveland are going to be the Heights, which are some of the most trendy areas in this general vicinity. You've got your Cleveland Heights, University Heights, Shaker Heights. These are all pretty nice urban areas that are super trendy that people are wanting to move to because it's got some great accommodations for the people that live there, and it's close to downtown. You have the hospital right there if you work at the hospital. It's just a great spot for people to live, and if you look at it geographically, it's still kind of close to that centralized area where the crime's happening. If you start breaking out even further than Cleveland and the Heights, you're going to have some amazing suburbs with some of the best schools in Ohio. There's plenty of walking paths, metro parks, and we've even got the national park. So I guess the point that I'm getting at here is as long as you do your research and decide on a suburb that fits your lifestyle, you are not going to have too many problems, if any. Don't get me wrong, these suburbs are not perfect. Every city is going to have its own issues, but they are not nearly as unsafe as some of these articles make it out to be. So that's kind of why I recommend coming over this way to see what area fits your lifestyle best. If you're going downtown for a game or an event, you're probably going to be okay. Those areas are not in bad locations by any means either. So as long as you're not putting yourself in bad situations, you're going to be totally fine living in this area. As far as red flag number 2 goes for living in the Cleveland area, we are experiencing a lot of inflation here. Now, I know this inflation isn't special to us, but that doesn't deter the fact that the pandemic and everything that happened with the economy has increased prices all the way across the United States. So it is becoming a little bit more expensive to live here, where in the past we have been ranked as some of the most affordable areas in the country, which we still are. But if you start to look at some of the trends, some of these houses here are becoming unaffordable for what the median income is for this area. And I think the perfect example for that is the house that I grew up in Parma, Ohio. Now, we owned this house throughout my childhood. I remember my parents always explaining to me that the house was only worth around $100,000, which at the time seemed like a lot of money. And in 2019, we sold it for $130,000. It was in good condition, slightly outdated, but nothing was broken and everything was working and usable. And now, almost 6 years later, that house is worth upwards of $250,000, assuming it's still in good condition. Now, if it were freshly updated, it could be worth a little bit more, but that just goes to show that it doubled in price in the matter of 5 years, which is not something I would have ever expected that Parma area to be worth. And to put that into perspective as far as what your income versus what you can afford is in the Parma area, the average household income in Parma is around $78,000 for the family. And assuming that household has no debt and a low down payment, you are going to only be able to afford $270,000 or so. Now that price range is still affordable for that area. However, some of the other suburbs of Cleveland are not going to be nearly as affordable. If you go south into Strongsville, the average house is going to cost you around $360,000. If you go north into Bay Village, the average house is going to cost you around $420,000. So if inflation keeps going up, some of these people are going to be priced out of living in the cheapest parts of Cuyahoga County, which is not a good thing. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some great areas that you can still get some pretty cheap houses in that low 200s area, but they're becoming more few and far between. And something else to think about is if you work your way into some of the other cities, you're going to notice that the household income goes up as well when you move over that way. So if you are able to get that starter home and increase your income over time, between inflation and your income growth, it is possible to work your way into some of those more trendy areas. Now, something else that's been on my mind as far as red flags go for the Cleveland area, I know I've mentioned it in other videos, but it's the taxes. The property taxes here suck, the income tax sucks, all taxes suck. One thing that I have not talked about in my other videos is the fact that property taxes just got reassessed here. And what they did was they went through and did a street appraisal for what the house is worth. And a lot of these houses in the whole Cuyahoga County, Lorain, and Medina areas all increased their value upwards of 30%. Now, the issue with that is that your taxes are going to go up when your house is worth more. It doesn't necessarily mean your taxes are going to go up by 30%, but you do have to pay more in property taxes, which means your monthly payment is going to go up. And a lot of the time when people are buying houses, they don't understand that that's what happens over time, because taxes for whatever reason don't seem to ever go down. Over time, that mortgage is going to slightly go up, even though you're locked in at a 30-year fixed rate. That fixed rate only accounts for your interest. So when you're buying a home, just keep that in the back of your mind. The majority of the time, it's not an issue when it does go up. It's not like it's going up by $500 to $1,000, but you are seeing small hikes over time, and assessments are happening every 3 to 5 years or so. So a pro tip is to keep that in the back of your mind as you are calculating your comfortability with whatever your monthly payment's going to be. As far as the income tax for the area, there are a few ways to escape the RETA tax. And what the RETA tax is if you live in, say, North Olmsted and you work in, say, Cleveland, you're going to have to pay 2 sets of income tax. Whereas if you just lived in Cleveland, you're only paying 1. So the way around that is to live in some sort of township, or if you live in a different county that is not Cuyahoga, you have the ability to not have to pay that. And what I mean by townships is that there are subsections of certain areas that are divided into smaller areas. And the most popular one that I'm seeing people wanting to move into is going to be Olmsted Township, but there are a few others that you could get into. Moving into my next red flag for living in the Cleveland area is going to be our public transportation. We don't have a lot of public transportation to choose from in this area. It is available, but it is a little bit tricky to work around because there's not a lot of it. We have RTA buses that drive around all the cities, and then we've also got the Rapid, which is like a subway system that goes between Cleveland and the suburbs, but there are not a lot of stops that you have the ability to go to, so you might be traveling a little bit if you want to take that Rapid into downtown. As far as the Rapid goes, the waterfront line provides service area between Tower City and the South Harbor Station in the municipal parking lot. The Blue Line has service between Tower City and Warrensville Van Aken Rapid Station, and that's in the Shaker Square area. The Green Line has service between Tower City and the Green Road Rapid Station. The Red Line services between Cleveland Hopkins Airport and downtown Cleveland, and then the Lewis Strokes Station and Windermere. And while the buses are available in the areas, you just got to abide by the different times that they stop by, and you're gonna have to plan your trip around that, which might not be super convenient depending on where and when you are going somewhere. Last on the list of red flags for living in the Cleveland area is going to be our population. Now, the issue with our population is that it's been declining for a really long time now. When you go places around here, it does not feel like we have a small population by any means, but if you look at graphs from the 1970s, you'll notice that we've been in a steady decline ever since. There's a bunch of different factors that play into a declining population. Some we've talked about, like taxes and climate. Others we haven't talked about, which some say are going to be related to housing issues with not enough places to live, and not having enough houses for sale is what's partly contributing to the inflation that we're seeing. But the big thing that happened that caused the start of the population decline was the deindustrialization. Between 2020 and 2021, Cuyahoga County's population dropped by 1.2%, which was the largest decline between 2010 and 2022. But other than that, during that same time period, the average drop rate has been sitting right between 0.4 and 1%. To be honest, I think a large part of that population drop is still staying in Ohio. They're just moving out of Cuyahoga County because they're trying to avoid the downsides that they're having to pay all these extra taxes, and the property taxes are a little bit lower if you go to some of the other counties. And the reason I say that people are staying in Ohio and this general vicinity is because the fact that if you look at Medina's population, you'll notice that it has been increased by almost 7% since 2010, and Lorain County is up by almost 6% in that same exact time period, with both of them still growing steadily compared to Cuyahoga County, which is decreasing. Now, me personally, I still live in Cuyahoga County. I love where I live. However, I do have potential plans of moving to Medina just because I want to be in a more secluded area with a little bit more land, which you don't commonly find in some of these suburbs, at least for the price range that I'm shooting to be in. So take that with a grain of salt. It's just the style of life that I want is going to be a little bit different than what I get in Cuyahoga County. However, there is one huge upside to Cuyahoga County for me personally, and that is the fact that I have the ability to get to the lake within like 10 minutes from where I'm at right now. And I spend a lot of time hanging out by the lake just because I really enjoy the sound of the water. And I really like the views of downtown that you get from some of the parks that we have here, along with all of the shopping and restaurants that come along with those trendier areas. So if the right opportunity came up for me, I would be more than open to staying in Cuyahoga County and moving up into Bay Village, Westlake, Rocky River. I'm a huge fan of those areas. So I hope this helps if you are starting to think about moving to the greater Cleveland area. I definitely do not mind living here. I absolutely love it. Like I said, I moved away and found myself longing to come back. If you have to move here for work or whatever reason and you've never been here before, I can help give you a lay of the land. So definitely reach out to me. All of my contact information is going to be down in the description. And if you find yourself down there, make sure you click that like button and subscribe to keep up with everything that's going on in the greater Cleveland area, because I like to make videos about what's going on here and different things to do and what it's like living here. But I'm going to leave the video there. I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching.